Hello, good morning, all you ministers of the gospel, all you servants of the Lord, brothers and sisters, wherever you are in the world, in the globe. Yes, we know things looks very shaking. It looks as if the end is coming. We do not know whatever God is doing, but whatever God is doing, let His name be glorified. But there are some important things we need to understand within ourselves, and I've come to share this with you through the topic forgiveness. And there is a reason why I want to share this because most of you think that when you forgive, it looks as if you are weak, you're a weakling. No, there are many reasons why you have to forgive. But first of all, let me look at the scripture where it actually says in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 14 and 15. I just read. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Now, forgiveness is very important. And I want to share this with you through a story my mother told me. And I remember my father used to say that, but I didn't understand it because I was still very young. But then I had an opportunity, to grow under my mother after my father passed away when I was 12. But then I was actually mentored by my mother, who also later passed away in 1993. She shared something very important to me, and that made me to understand that forgiveness is very important because you never know. We live in a life that is very mysterious. The word of mystery. Sometimes most people or most ministers of the gospel or most brothers and sisters may hear me sometimes. I call him Jehovah Uminikome because he is so mysterious, deep upon deep. He's so deep that you cannot understand. Now, hear this story. My parents used to acknowledge them as people that were rich, as people that were prosperous, people that had money. I don't know what that means. If you say people are rich, people are millionaires, are billionaires, and everything. Yes, it's an opportunity which the other people could not be able to utilize, an opportunity this one utilized, an opportunity that never came here, and an opportunity that came the other side. And it was utilized that money can walk into anybody's pocket, anybody's account, and anything. It's not about the effort you made. It's not about the struggles or the powers and everything. No, is how God has favored you and how God has blessed you. Sometimes you may use it as an advantage over others. And some people who occupy certain positions now and they think that they will continue occupying the positions. I've seen many who have occupied very, great positions in the past, but today they are nowhere. They are nowhere to be found. Other people, have ascended into those positions, and guess what? They become followers, just like others have been followers. Now, look at this. My mother shared this with me. In 1967, before the Civil War that broke out in Nigeria, the war between Nigeria and Biafra, it happened that there was a young man that was called Young. Young came from Cross River, the present Cross River state in Nigeria, and Young was amongst his servants, to my parents. I remember a time we used to be about 36 in the house, 36 excluding my siblings, and we are 6 that were born by our parents. Luckily today we are still all alive. Some of us have grandchildren. And my parents, because of the way they found themselves, or the way, the privilege, opportunity God gave them, they found themselves that they had a whole lot of people that were living with them, that were taken care of. Those that wash the car, those that clean, those that do this and that. And my mother was a medical practitioner with medical centers. Now, this young man was loved so much by my father. Coming from the area of the Cross River, present Cross River State, was loved so much by my father. My father made him like the head of the servants. But the young man was hated by my mother. And it's my mother that is sharing this with me. She hated the young man because she suspected, and all the time suspected, that this young man was like a witchcraft. His ways were not very clear, to her. So at all times, she's always suspicious of the young man. She said that one day she was coming out because we lived in the same building where the medical center was being practiced. And that was actually in Ungwa Road, Aba. Now, 98B Ungwa Road, Aba, to be specific. Now, one day she said in the afternoon, she was waiting for my father to come back from work. My father used to work with the Texas Mill as an admin manager. And it was getting noon, and my father will always come in for his lunch before he gets back to work. So she was coming out from her office, and the guests were getting to the kitchen. She claimed that she saw the young man putting up some spices or something he brought from his pocket inside my father's food. And she rushed immediately and grabbed him and shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He said he wasn't doing anything. He said, "No, I saw you putting something into my husband's food." And the man, he denied. And in the process, while my mother was beating him, trying to make him, agree, my father drove in and asked what was happening, because some other nurses and the other people were gathering. My mother explained. The young man denied, and he was asked to test the food. He tested the food, and my father told my mom, "You see, there's nothing wrong. This young man didn't do anything." My mother insisted that my father should not eat that food, but because of the love my father had for the young man, he said, "There's nothing in this food," and the young man has tested it. He went ahead and ate the food. My mother was not happy, and she was very apprehensive. One night, she said, when she was coming out from the labor room, because there was a woman that gave birth late in the night, around 2 a.m. in the night. So she was coming out from the labor room. She says, and she saw that the light in one of the rooms, is it Mary's room or something, one of the, housemaids, the light from her room was on around that 2 a.m., and that wasn't normal. And she quickly went there and saw that the lady was fully naked and was breathing fast. She tried to wake her up and wondered why was she fully naked, sleeping. Tried to wake her up, and she couldn't wake up. She looked like a dummy. It's like someone that was already dead. But she was breathing, she was healthy, and she couldn't understand what was happening. She went out to go, to go and call, her assistant nurse. But on going out, she also saw that from the room where Young sleeps, the light was also on. So she went to Young's room, opened the door, and saw that Young was also sleeping, fast asleep, and fully naked. And she couldn't understand it, but when she looked on the floor, she saw there was a pot with feather, and there was it's like some concussion inside it. And in her mindset, she understood that there is something transparent, and she believed that it was from Young. And she had always suspected that this young man is a witchcraft. So she didn't go to wake up my father. She went and called, her assistant nurse, and they woke up, few other people, and they went there. So what my mom did was to craftily stole the little pot away and went and poured it red oil. And Nigerians, the way they do, in our understanding, in our culture, poured it red oil and, use something to cover it, and went and hid it somewhere outside from the room. But because of the noise that was coming up from the outside, my father woke up and came, to look at what was actually happening. And so, nurses and other people gathering, and my elderly siblings had already woken up, joined them. And my father went and saw Young the way Young was. And my mother had already gone to wake up, Mary. And she woke up fully, woken up, not dressed, and she was confused. She didn't know what was happening. But she only narrated that, something was happening in her, and she didn't understand. Now, my father tried to wake up Young, and Young couldn't wake up. Tried everything, and he was now snoring, and the snoring is like, he was really having problem breathing. My father was very, very afraid that this young man may die. So he ran out immediately and ran to a reverend father in the Catholic Church, Our Lady of Lourdes, near in Ngwa Road. Is it Ngwa Road by East Street then? So he quickly went, and the man's name, the reverend father, was Father Franiga. Father Franiga, who used to be, in charge of the, Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church in Aba area at that time. We don't know whether to call him a magician. We don't know whether to call him whatever, because he can use a long 6 inches, put it on his nose all through, and pull it out from his mouth. There are so many things he performs as a kind of magic or something, and the people were mesmerized. But then, as a white reverend father, then under, we would say we were still under colonial destiny, but that was the situation then. The missionaries were mostly the people that were around. Now, Father Flanagan came, it was already towards 5 a.m. And this young man was breathing and breathing. You would now find out that maybe his death will just come soon. So when Father Flanagan came inside the room and looked at the whole situation and told my father that there was a little pot here and somebody removed that pot from this very place. Please find out who removed the pot and ask the person to bring the pot. Incidentally, my father felt that it must be my mother who removed the pot and asked my mother, say, "One day, please. Where is the pot?" My mother denied, said, no, there's no pot. I didn't touch anything. We haven't gone in there. My father insisted and begged and knelt down for my mother and pleaded. My mother said, unless on one condition, so give me the condition, that as soon as this thing is brought out and this man, if he wakes up, he will leave this house. My father agreed. So long as he doesn't die in this house, let him go. And my mother went and brought the pot. And Father Franiga looked at the pot with oil. He now instructed my father that I'm going to do something here. As soon as I do it, please let everybody go inside their room. Don't come out to embarrass the young man once he comes out, because embarrassment might make him die. And everybody agreed. So Father Franiga poured water 3 times into that little pot that contained the red oil and the feathers and everything. Poured water 3 times and turned it round, went and placed it on the floor where it was before, and closed the door and banged on that door 3 times and asked everybody to disappear. All of them, they went and hid. By then, we had woken up, but then we were still very little children. We didn't know what was actually happening. We were just watching, and we were just asked to keep our mouth shut. And he didn't, when he banged on the door 3 times, it didn't take up to 2 minutes. Young just came out from the room. It's like he closed and he found out that already it was past 6 a.m. this time. The sun had already come out, and there are things they used to do when they come out early in the morning, clean everywhere, wash the car, do this and that. So he looked around, he didn't see anybody. As soon as he was just looking around and was a bit embarrassed, my mother rushed out from where she was hiding and gave him some claps, beating, calling him Onyoshi, Chief, Parawo, calling all kinds of names and embarrassing. And my father came herding. So many people, and my mother made a lot of noise. People came, rushing into the compound, and it was a total embarrassment, for the young man. And they wanted to beat him up. My father pleaded, leave him, so that I wouldn't want this young man dead. What will I tell his parents? So my father guided the young man, and people even accompanied them, shouting and everything, until they went to the park in Aba. I think that was Asa Road or that area, and made sure the young man entered, transport and went home. Now, the case was closed then. Nobody knew what was going to happen again. That was in 1967. Incidentally, the war broke out. By 1968, Aba was bombed. And my parents, already we have been sent home. And most people will walk from Aba to Mbise. I come from Mbise. Most people will walk from Aba to Enugu. Most people, there wasn't much means of transport. People have disappeared. For those of you who are thinking that calamity had befallen us, those of you who are thinking because of the situation that has come, we saw wars. We know that this is a plague from God, but it is actually teaching us something. We are going back to basics, remembering what we went through during the Civil War for those of us who have been born then and who were little children, and for those who are still alive. Now, my parents, we are going from Aba, when Aba was born, going from Aba to Mbise, and they were passing through Umoba. Now, at Umoba, the soldiers were there arresting people they suspect to be Hausas or Yorubas. And it was easy to dictate who were Yorubas. My mother used to wear a lot of buba. And Yorubas are known to wear a lot of buba. And my mother loved that attire and she wears it. And my mother was considered at some point, I believe around between 1970 and 1974, to be one of the fattest women you can have in Abadan. That I know. So, because she was fat and she was wearing buba, now they saw her and they believed that she was a Yoruba. No, the soldiers caught her. My father, who used to have occupied so many positions, now he was a very wealthy man in his own class then. But during the war, he became nothing. Because during war, during situations like this, nobody wants to know who is the rich, who is the poor. Everybody becomes equal. That's the doing of God. Because everybody is trying to, everyone will be trying to, hide his or her, shield himself or herself. Now, nobody is talking about class anymore. It becomes a classless society. Now, it was a classless situation that both the rich and the poor were trying to save themselves. So when they saw my father and my mother, they were coming amongst our people because you don't drive, you don't do anything. They saw her and dragged my mother. Dragged her out. And as a man, there's nothing much you can do. You will be shot dead right there. When you overdo, they will shoot you. So they dragged my mother out amongst and kept her amongst those people they suspect that are enemies. So they weren't considering whether you are a Yoruba married by an Igbo, whether you're a Hausa married by an Igbo. All they know is you are a Yoruba, you are a Hausa, you are a Nigerian, you are not a Biafran. So they separated my mother and kept her amongst the people that were to be shot on firing squad. The first said, my father was here helpless, crying, amongst other people whose wives or husbands have also been separated and kept for firing squad. Guess what? The first said, we are tied on the tree there, and they were shot, all of them. The second said, we are tied there. Guess what? They were shot. All these ones are dead. When they shoot them, they carry out the dead bodies and everything and put in the next one. Now, the third said is my mother said. And they took my mom amongst other people and tied them. They have already said to shoot. There comes a jeep. And that jeep, an army jeep that was coming with about 3 or 4, soldiers in them. And a young captain, well dressed, smartly dressed, as a young captain. I do not know whether it is a routine or some of the rules of the of the military, but because there's a senior officers that were coming, they had to wait. And they saluted the young captain, and he came down, trying to martial out instructions and everything. And he came looking at the people that were tied on the rope. And seeing my mother, he shouted, my madam, my madam, my madam. This is my madam, this is my madam. And they were surprised. He said, no, 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 no. He's an Igbo, he's an Igbo. He's an Igbo from Bisa, he's an Igbo, not Yoruba. And my father called him from where he was standing and said, Young. He said, hey, my master, my master, my master. And he gave instruction for my mother to be released right away. This happened at Omoba. It was in 1968, after Abba had been born. And my mother was, untied immediately. The other people that were there were shot in the presence of my father and my mother. My mother was untied. She wept so much, fell on the knees of the young captain. Guess who the young captain is? The young that was humiliated by my mother, that was driven away, that was shattered. They wanted to stone him. My mother hated him so much. And he was the one who gave instruction. They took the jeep and everything, carrying my father and my mother back to our home in Mbise. From that time, my mother learned her lesson. She doesn't forget it. She said, my son, no matter whatever anyone would do to you, forgive that person. Because life we live in is a world of mystery. Young recognized that my father was his master, even when he has ascended to a higher position than my father. When he had the authority and the power to execute judgment on my mother. Yet he recognized, because of my master, you were my mother, no matter how you treated me, but because of my master. I can tell you, forgive whoever that has wronged you, because of the Father in heaven. If you do not forgive, how would he forgive you? Forgiveness is not a weakness. There are most people that no matter how they wrong me, when I forgive them and overlook what they have done, sometimes they consider it as a weakness. But I always remember this because my mother taught me this about forgiveness. They may not understand why I easily forgive, because you never know who is your next president. You never know who is your next king. You never know who is your next governor. There are experiences I've had in life. I now know the word forgiveness is important. Forgive whoever that have wronged you. Do not look down on anybody because of the present situation, or where you find that person, or where you find your person, and you are okay. My younger brother used to tell me in those days that when we keep saying left, right, be on the queue, match it. Once you say about turn, those who are in the front becomes those that will be at the back. You never can know tomorrow. Forgive people their trespasses, so that God in heaven may also forgive you. Thank you very much. God bless you. You can, if this intrigues you, if you love it, you can share it to others. God bless you. Thank you.